following podcast was brought to you by the members of the Casino Skunk Secret Society. For just $1 a month, you can unlock every audio and video episode available instantly. And don't worry about any commitments. You can quit at any time. So for just $1, you can download every single episode and then bounce out. Just head to patreon.com/CasinoSkunk. Welcome to the Casino Skunk Secret Society Mandalorian, Chapter 10, The Passenger. And today I'm joined by Tony Thaxton of Motion City Soundtrack, the wonderful podcast Bizarre Albums, and an upcoming Twitch stream with Don't Stop or We'll Die, where you're the drummer. Twitch.tv/Don't Stop or We'll Die. I think that's right?
That is correct, yeah. This Friday.
So Mandalorian, Chapter 10. It's weird that there's new Star Wars. I feel like with all the news and stuff, this kind of snuck up on us. But man, I gotta say, I'm enjoying season 2. Do you have any thoughts on how it's going so far? I guess I'm in the minority based on what I see on the internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had not seen talk like that. Interesting.
I heard complaints about this episode specifically.
Well, I gotta say, I absolutely love the show. I love all things Star Wars, as you know.
Yeah.
And, even when Star Wars has moments I don't like, I still, overall, still like it, Yeah. As our Star Wars Minute friends always say, it's still new Star Wars, so it's fun.
Right.
I will say, though, so far, we're 2 episodes into the new season.
Right.
The episode 1, I loved. I think that might even be my favorite episode so
I think
far.
it's mine as well. I think it was the most fun.
Yeah. And just like just a lot of cool elements in there. However,
Okay.
episode 2, probably my least favorite episode of the series.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Again, I'm not going to go so far as to say I hated it or anything, but I definitely was kind of like, all right, where's this going? I never lost interest because I think that's the thing is like, it's the secret weapon it has for me is I'm always like, even when I'm not really into something happening, I'm like,
Right.
all right, this must be headed somewhere. Where's this going?
Right. I feel like in season 1, there wasn't really a goal. So I had some issues with season 1. There's some sort of, Incredible Hulk, David Banner stuff going on, where each episode he gets a job, and then at the end of the episode he's walking off to the sad Hulk music, and that's fine. I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 77, so like all that stuff's like fresh in my mind as far as how TV used to be.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah, so you're 1 year older than me. So,
yeah. But there was something about that where for me it lacked any sort of direction. As far as there was no singular villain, you had kind of villains sprinkled throughout, and there was no real singular goal other than to protect the child. Just fine.
Right.
So far this season, we're not getting a lot of story stuff, but we have a goal, which is he needs to take the child to his home.
Right.
Which is nice. We still don't have a villain, but we keep getting we had a glimpse of Boba Fett, who we're assuming is Boba Fett.
Uh-huh.
But there's no real sort of, this is only episode 2. And I feel like it perfectly matches up with season 1, because I think the second episode of season 1 was the egg episode, which didn't really it didn't lend itself to a story. It didn't like expand on like Werner Herzog or the Dr. Pershing character.
Yeah, but agreed. But interestingly, though, I loved that episode.
Is it the Jawas?
I don't know. To me, that episode was really fun.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed that one though. That was probably. Oh no, I'm not gonna say that was my favorite of season 1, but it was up there though.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I hear that, and that took some getting used to for me as well. Talking about how like so many of the episodes are kind of standalone,
Hmm.
like old TV used to be,
Right.
and that I don't honestly I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I just remember it really catching me off guard in season one because I was not expecting that.
Right, because it's Star Wars, and you're so like the way it's been done during the Disney era has all been trying to connect everything and relying on canon. Or you look at like the Clone Wars, where it's it's just giant connecting story.
Right.
And season one of The Mandalorian was like 8 completely separate stories, and then the littlest of through lines.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's always like it seems like there's always little elements though that get pulled that like it seemed maybe kind of insignificant at the time, and then like
Right.
later characters come back and stuff. And so I'm assuming this will be doing the same. And I will say, like right before we started recording, I was just quickly looking at Instagram and I saw Star Wars just posted they've been posting like Mandalorian like posters basically,
Right.
and they
Yeah.
just posted a new one that has the frog lady on the poster, and I was
Yeah.
like, does this mean she's actually going to like continue coming back?
I don't know. It feels like Topps cards.
Right.
like you get one weekly Topps card for the Mandalorian, and this is
Yeah.
the person they're showcasing.
Yeah, I hope that is the case because I do not much care for the frog lady.
Really?
Yeah. I think that this has been excuse me. One of my only complaints about the show is I do feel like the character design
Hmm.
lacks a little bit for me.
Okay.
When we see aliens we've seen before and everything, that's fine because we know them and we've seen them and we're used to how they look. And
Right.
I don't know, there's just something about like, oh, this lady's just a big frog. And I know
Right.
that Star Wars has kind of done that before with certain animals or whatever, but like, like there's the giant praying mantis that's in the background of,
Right.
yeah. But like, that's so minor
It's
and
so
like not
it's.
really.
I feel like it's hard because it's Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau who are kind of spearheading this show. They feel like they're trying to recreate 1984 or 1983, like something you would see. This is right after Return of the Jedi, and these like there was certain amount of characters that were available then, and they
Right.
were usually like Walrus Man, Yak Face,
Yeah.
Hammerhead. Like the names were very generic,
Mhm.
and the designs were very generic back then, like Prune Face. Like, and
Yeah.
so to have a character look like a frog and be called Frog Lady, like they're trying to like resurrect Kenner
Right.
from like
Yeah.
1984.
And I get that. I just wish there was like some other sort of element because even like Walrus Man, like you don't look. I never looked at him thinking like, oh, he looks like a walrus.
Yeah.
I understand like there's things about him that do, sure, but like it it's not just like, oh, this looks like if a walrus was a person. Like
Right.
there was still something like alien and different about him, whereas this just
Got
looks
it.
like a frog, an upright walking frog. Although later then we see it moving like a frog as well.
So
So
it's like even more frog like.
yeah,
She was pink. That was kind of
that's
cool.
true. That's true. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it's tough because we've never really, like you said, the giant praying mantis. That was something that was like always in the very back of the cantina, and you only knew about it if you had like trading cards,
Right.
or Tales from Mos Eisley.
Oh yeah. I mean, I grew up. As I said, I'm 1 year younger than you, so like Star Wars has
Right.
literally always been around for me, and but I grew up being obsessed and loved it, and like was really good. Like as I started getting a little bit older, started like I remember like there was an old character guide that came out in the 90s, and I remember like studying that thing so hard, and then like it wasn't until like years and years later, like when I was either like in high school or out of high school, was the first time I ever even noticed the praying mantis. And I'm like, how have I
Right.
never noticed that before? And like now it's like, it's like where my eyes go now when I watch it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I don't know.
I think it was I brought up the CD-ROM so many times. In like the 90s, there was a
Uh-huh.
CD-ROM like it was either Behind the Magic or something like that. Where
Yeah,
they had like
I know what you're talking
wallpapers,
about.
but they had the Cantina wallpaper or the screensaver that would just scan back and forth that main shot of the Cantina and zoom in
Uh,
on people and give you their stats. And I'm like, oh, it's a praying mantis. Yeah, there's so much stuff in there. But if you were to watch this, let's say this is 1984 and the show came out in 1984.
uh-huh.
Like, do you think you would like the Frog Lady more or less?
Let me ask if that was the
I,
case, am I how old I would have been in 1984, or am I me now?
I'm just saying this show came out in 1984 and you were 6 years old, 7 year old,
Yeah,
7 years
yeah.
old. Yeah.
I think as a kid I probably would have been more okay with it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, it's just I don't know. There's just some of those things like as an adult you see things differently. Like when they introduce new things sometimes. I don't know. Like there's just some things that are like ingrained and you're like, oh yeah, this is just like kind of how this is how Star Wars works. But I don't know. There's just and again I know I'm being very nitpicky and I don't like to be negative about these things, but I also I'm trying to be honest about my feelings here though too.
That's totally fine. I like the Frog Lady. I feel like it's something that maybe George Lucas would have said offhand to Dave Filoni.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we should have a Frog Lady, and he did it literally. And George Lucas came to the set, and I could see him giggling.
Right.
And I feel like if it's something that'll make George Lucas giggle, then it's okay for Star Wars. And I don't know anything about this character, but I feel like it would make him giggle.
Right. Yeah, I
I
think that's my biggest thing. I'll say this and leave it at the. I think I would be fine with Frog Lady if she was just a background character. You know what I mean?
right.
Which I believe she was last season. If it was the same frog person, because you see it. I remember seeing that character in the cantina last season.
What if it was let's say Muff Tack and Cabe,
Uh-huh.
the little bat
Uh-huh.
and mouse guy. Like, what if they got brought to the forefront? Would you be okay with that?
See. I know that's the thing is
I'm not trying to
probably,
I'm not trying to change your opinion. I'm just
right,
curious.
right.
I'm fascinated by.
I think it would be tough. I would need to see the execution because I think there would be part of me that would be excited. I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe they're like making these characters a thing. But I could definitely see that going south though.
Right.
Um,
I'm glad
yeah,
she
and
didn't speak. I'll say that.
right, yeah, that is a pet peeve. Although I do think the Disney era has been better about this than the prequel era seemed to be, where like too many of the aliens speaking English.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it occasionally, but I think it makes them automatically cooler if they're not speaking English.
Okay. What do you think of Dr. Mandible?
Man, I didn't love him either, and I heard a lot of people did love him, and it was just a little too. Again, it was very reminiscent of Praying Mantis,
Right.
Because again, I remember seeing him in season 1 as well. So I was
Yeah.
surprised that he was in such a prominent scene. Although I didn't really think about it at the time, but someone on the internet, I forget what it was that I saw, kind of pointed out like, oh, is this a little like kind of like wink because Peyton Reed directed the episode and he also directed the Ant-Man movies.
Right.
So yeah.
I feel like I'm assuming they had stuff on the set and we're just like, okay, we need this. What do we have? Kind of like how they constructed IG-88 out of the stuff from the cantina in
Right.
Empire, or they took like the Trandoshan head and turned it into Bosk, and they like mix and match stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they like, well, we have this stuff already. Let's help the budget and bring this creature to the forefront. I don't know, but I was actually more fine with Frog Lady than Dr. Mandible. Dr. Mandible, like, I don't know.
I'm kind of with you there, though. Yeah.
It's fine. I don't know if Peyton Reed had anything to do with it, because like you said, if you saw it in the background last season, it's like, oh well, obviously I'm going to pick this one. That's an ant,
Right.
It wasn't probably in a script or anything like that. I was surprised to see Peyton Reed's name.
I'd remembered reading he was going to be doing some episodes, but I'd just forgotten. And then when his name popped up at the end, I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Right. And I'm wondering if he did this episode because of all the spiders and the tunnels and stuff.
This guy loves bugs.
I know. Like, if we could do an episode about bugs, like, which came first, like the chicken or the egg? Did Peyton Reed come on first and then they made a bug one, or they had a bug one and got him?
That's a good question. Yeah.
But that whole spider sequence I loved. It was cool. It was like a horror movie or an alien movie, but set in Star Wars universe. And I'm a big fan of like monster movies and creatures, and I always wanted to just do a deep dive into the sort of the creatures of Star Wars, but it's getting ridiculous now, so it'd be an undertaking.
Right.
But as soon as I saw the spiders, I knew it was from the Ralph McQuarrie artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a perfect representation. I know they were in Rebels, but this looked like the Ralph McQuarrie artwork. Are you familiar with that artwork?
I am, and what's funny is I had forgotten about it though, because I had definitely seen it before, and it didn't click in the moment of watching it. It was like the next day or something. I was watching or reading a review of the episode, and then they showed that picture. I was like, oh yes, of course, I've seen that photo,
Right.
that artwork a million times. I just completely forgot about it.
And what's funny about the artwork is it shows it like, because I remember the artwork, but I didn't like know every detail. But it shows it laying those eggs, and like the eggs look the same and everything.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love that they're going back and using Macquarie stuff. I think that's one thing that like the Disney era has brought that I've absolutely loved is bringing Macquarie to life. Even the X-Wings in the sequel trilogy, the engines are shaped like Macquarie design.
Oh really? I had
Instead
not
of
caught that.
instead of the 4 cylinders, it's 2 cylinders cut in half.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's how you describe it. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of X-Wings, we get X-Wings back, and we get a glimpse of like kind of where the universe is now, where the Rebel Alliance has grown into, this new republic, and they're kind of police.
Yeah, they definitely came off very copy in that.
Yeah, like pull over. But
Yeah.
and then locking their S foils in attack position is like turning on their lights. Like their police lights. But I liked it because it was just 2 X-Wings kind of out in the outer rim of space. Felt like the Old West, like a sheriff and his deputy or something.
Right.
I kind of enjoyed that, and I kind of like how they aren't that strict on the rules.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're like, okay, you're kind of an a-hole, and we don't trust you, but we see that you've done some good, that it's helped us out, so you're free to go.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't help him at all, like get out, but
Yeah. No, I hear you. And again, this is I'm getting so nitpicky, and I don't like
Okay.
to do this, but I my one little minor complaint is again, I think overall maybe this was one of the things I didn't like about the episode was on top of it kind of being one of these, at least at the moment, seemingly standalone episodes.
right.
There was kind of a lot of things like brought back. There's like, really, we're getting this person again? And so like the fact that Dave Filoni was one of the pilots,
Right.
like, we've seen him as a pilot. Like there's got to be more pilots out there, and we're already like seeing him again. And I figured he was in that one episode before because he's Dave Filoni, and they wanted to give him a quick little cameo, not that he was gonna show up again.
Well, I'm trying to think if maybe So when the prisoner episode last season took place in relation to the Tatooine episode, and I want to say it happened right after, and this episode he left Tatooine, so maybe he's just in Filoni's,
All
jurisdiction.
Right, yeah. Okay, I can get behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that could be it, and he's seen the ship before.
Right.
He's just like kind of waiting behind the billboard for that car to come cruising through again.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't remember if it was before. It might have been after the Tatooine episode. I don't remember the orders.
I believe it's after.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm okay with that. And I like that it wasn't like the same 3 X-Wing guys. It was Filoni and then a new X-Wing pilot.
Yeah.
So he could be like sort of the marshal or the sheriff of this jurisdiction, and he kind of goes around and checks in on other X-Wing pilots, maybe. I don't know. But the one thing I did enjoy, that I really enjoyed about that, was seeing them in the cockpits with the cockpits open, holding their blasters.
Yeah.
It looked real Army Man like. Like it. We don't really see, like, it felt like, once again, Kenner action figures. Like, that's something you would do with your X-Wing toy. Instead of just flying it around, you'd have your guys, jumping all over it and, like, repairing stuff and, like,
Right.
having a standoff in an X-Wing. Especially, like, when I was a kid and I only had, like, one. I had a snow speeder. That's the only vehicle I had. And so I really didn't have space battles so much as I had ground battles around the vehicle.
I was kind of the same way. I had a few ships, but I had most of the figures, but I didn't have nearly as many ships. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up a minifig guy, or the mini rig. I'm sorry. And I am praying that they make the mini rigs canon. All those little vehicles that were never in the movies.
Yeah, I feel like it's a matter of time, because they've already brought in the troop transport last year.
Yeah.
So I feel like your time's coming.
If any show's gonna do it, especially if, like, with Boba Fett kind of on the trail, I'd love to see a Boba Fett in the little tiny, like, 1-seater sandcrawler or sail barge.
Oh right, yeah, I remember that one.
Get him in that.
I don't think I ever actually had any of the mini rigs, but I definitely remember them.
I brought this up with Alex. I had the one that had the 2 bulldozer wheels that the snow trooper went in, and you pushed it down and it, like, would collapse flat. I had that one, and that's what I'm hoping to see. Like, I saw the trailer for season 2 has the troop transport again, with some speeder bikes chasing it, but I'm like, they should have made it those mini rigs with the bouncy suspension. Like, oh man, that would have been perfect. There's not a whole lot of story in this episode.
No, there really isn't.
With none of the Moff Gideon, none of the Boba Fett, which I'm kind of fine with. I don't need any sort of I like that it just feels like its own thing and it doesn't, like, pull in from the EU.
Right.
But we get a whole lot of Baby Yoda eating eggs, which made me cringe every time. Because I know they're just eggs, but at the same time, like, it looked like if you go to in LA, there's a place called Philippe's, French dip, and they always have the jar of pickled eggs up on the shelf, and you can order the pickled egg. It reminded me of that. They were carrying around that thing, and he just kept popping them in his mouth. And I kept feeling bad because the whole reason she's there is to protect these eggs and get them to wherever. The baby just kept eating them.
Which I felt like, I mean, I guess maybe that was just kind of to lead up to the spiders or something, right? I guess. But yeah, because I kept waiting for there to maybe be, for her to catch him doing it at some point and there to be some big conflict that came out of that, but it never happened.
Yeah, I guess it's fine.
Yeah.
I guess it's fine. It was good to see the return of Zero, the robot.
Yeah.
Richard Ayoade?
I think that's how you say it, yeah.
I'm not gonna have you try to attempt it.
I feel like that's the way I've heard people say it, anyways.
Yeah,
Richard Ayoade.
I tried to skip through the recaps so fast, but he was the first one they showed in the recap, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's coming back. Recaps always feel like a spoiler.
Right. Yeah, I know. I tend to do the same and try to just skip them because I don't tend to need to be reminded because I've watched. I usually will end up watching the episodes multiple times. So
right, and it's Star Wars. You're pretty good at probably just absorbing everything you can.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm not good at that with a lot of things, but Star Wars is one of those things. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if there's much more about the episode that happened. I mean, we get some stuff on Tatooine. There was a mugging that was unsuccessful.
Right. Which, yeah, I felt like it was a fun start to the episode, I think.
Right.
Like, I feel like that was probably my favorite part. Yeah, that was all right. I'm curious if down the road, if there's going to be things about this episode that we're gonna go like, oh, okay, so there was something bigger going on here leading to us to this, but we'll see.
But the episodes always feel so like cut and dry, like A to B, like a singular line beginning to end. So it's hard to find stuff kind of mixed in there. I'm sure characters will come out. Maybe we'll see the X-Wing pilots again. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to pick it apart, especially since it's only episode 2 and they're not really getting into crazy canon yet.
Yeah, I'm curious that it is interesting that we're 2 episodes in already and there has not been any Gideon yet.
Right.
I figured I've kind of assumed that was going to pick right up with that, but no. And I kind of figured we weren't going to get Boba Fett again right away, but I don't know. I was kind of hoping, just because I'm really curious where that's going, like how he's actually going to play into all of this.
I feel like we're going to have to see a fight between them, which it shouldn't be, right? It should be, this is your armor, here you go.
Right.
Like, because I feel like that would be the kind of code of the Mandalorian. Unless Mando realizes that Boba Fett's not a real Mandalorian.
Right.
But technically, either is the Mandalorian, so right. I'm sure everyone's expecting a fight. I feel like they'll only do that to please the audience, and it won't be necessary. Like, I don't think I'm gonna like it.
Yeah, the one thing I've thought about, and I'm gonna throw this out there in case.
Yeah.
I do not think I'm right about this. Let me start off by saying this.
But put it on. But it'll be on the record, so that's good.
Yes, and it's just something that popped into my head, and I was like,
November 9th.
What if there is some sort of conflict between the two of them, and basically the show flips after this season, and the Mandalorian is Boba Fett, and the show ends up being about him.
I mean, I could see it happening. I feel like I see too many Star Wars articles on Twitter, where you keep hearing things about Pablo Pascal.
Yeah,
and I don't know how much is true, if he's really hates it or if he is enjoying it or what.
Okay, so I didn't realize that was actually a thing big enough that was going around, because I had heard this from somebody that
there was some rumor that he wanted his helmet off more.
Yeah,
and they're like, well, that's the character doesn't take his helmet off, and he hated being in the armor or something, which I was under the impression that he wasn't in it that much in the first season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the grandson of John Wayne is a body double / stand-in stunt guy.
Okay.
And from what I heard, he did the majority of the stuff, and Pablo Pascal did the voiceover. Anyway, I like what you're saying.
I don't even know if I like it. It's just like
I,
a little thought I had that I was like, oh, that could be kind of interesting, or
but
it could ruin it, or it could be interesting. I don't know.
well, the thing is, I mean, we're just watching a guy in a suit, and the
Yeah.
show's called The Mandalorian. It's not. It doesn't say which Mandalorian.
Right.
Um.
Yeah, that was kind of honestly, this thought kind of goes back to last season, even before we found out that Boba Fett was very likely coming back.
Right.
I think everybody kind of had a hunch that he was gonna play into it somehow,
Right.
but yeah, that was a thought that I had even as similar as last season. It's like, oh, just calling this the Mandalorian does kind of leave options open for
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be the same guy the whole time.
For a movie to or for a show to switch its lead, I mean that's not unheard of.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think just the guts to do that.
Yeah.
I think it would be okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
even
we'll
if
see.
we'll see. I'm fine with it, but you've like I said, it's November 9th. This is a this is a prediction, and yeah, we'll revisit it for sure if it happens.
Or
I'll,
let me throw this out there real
okay.
quick. Or because this is kind of somewhat based on another thing an idea that I had. Uh, what if
Okay.
kind of the same thing we're talking about, but maybe what is actually his name? Din? Is
Din,
that
it's like Din
yeah.
Djarin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if he somehow becomes like wanted for something, and he's kind of on the run even more than he kind of already is, and he ends up putting on the Boba Fett armor and starts calling himself Boba Fett.
I think diehard Boba Fett fans would be furious.
Because the reason this thought came to me was because this was like an idea I had a while back of, because and then this sort of goes with what you're saying a little bit with diehard Boba Fett fans, because for me, I'm not going to call myself a diehard Boba Fett fan, but
Yeah, not either.
as a kid, I liked Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And, definitely cool looking. And I always, like so much of the prequel stuff, it kind of made Boba Fett less cool, I think.
Mhm.
I know that's a
Right.
popular opinion with some, a very unpopular opinion with some.
Yep.
But that was kind of a thought I had. And so, we find out he's a clone, and then they redubbed the voice on the special editions and all that stuff. I had a thought it would be a cool story for them to just do something where Boba Fett like maybe teams up with another bounty hunter. My example that I had always used was like Cad Bane.
Okay.
And I thought, because I think that's kind of a cool character that would be cool to introduce into live
Right.
action stuff. And sort of have them working some sort of job together, and it's sort of that same thing where like then end up being on the run, and basically Cad Bane ends up killing Boba, and he puts on the armor, but and then lives as Boba Fett. And but I wanted this to happen like some side story, and this happens before the original trilogy, so that when we meet Boba Fett in the original trilogy,
Right.
he's not Boba Fett.
Got it. So it's like Dread Pirate Roberts.
Sure.
Like he like
I don't know those stories well enough.
Oh no, I was talking about the what is it? Princess Bride.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I know it, but not super well. I'm not a huge Princess Bride guy.
Essentially, it's or like the Phantom. Like people think they're immortal characters, but secretly the costume's getting passed down
Right.
through to different people, like an understudy. And,
Right.
people think the Phantom is like the ghost that walks, or Dread Pirate Robert's been sailing the seas forever, but it's really, Carrie Elwes.
Right.
But yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
I just thought it could have been a cool thing to throw in to kind of like make the character interesting again.
What I wanted to happen is that since 1983, fans screaming that Boba Fett didn't die in the Sarlacc pit, to bring him back in the Mandalorian, only to have him trip into another Sarlacc pit. Like I grew up in the dark times. We grew up in the dark times, and I was so sick and tired of hearing how cool Boba Fett was. I'm like, I don't get it. Like he's obviously cool looking, but for me, he wasn't like the coolest guy. That was like Bosk was the coolest guy for me.
Right.
But it's like how funny would it be if after all this time kicking and screaming that he shot his way out, and it's been put in like, every version of the EU, to finally see him back in live action, only to be like killed in an even stupider way.
Right.
I think would be funny, but there's no way. I can't even imagine the letters and tweets that Kathleen Kennedy would get if that were to happen. I immediately feel bad for her. But I mean, I'm interested in seeing what happens. I like the idea. I think the idea of the show switching over to a different Mandalorian is great. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to it. I'm not saying that I necessarily want it to happen. I could be okay with it, but yeah, I don't know. Just a little thought I had that I thought could be interesting.
I think it would be ballsy. I'm totally down with it. Any other thoughts of the future? What might happen? Any predictions that I can put in a highlight video and post all over Twitter when it comes true?
I feel like
or a headliner. That was a headliner,
right? Yeah. I tend to be wrong with my predictions in Star Wars a lot.
I was proven wrong on this episode.
Well, this was something I considered, again, probably thinking way too much into it, but that maybe this whole episode, this mission and everything they were on, that the bigger pull away from all of this stuff is that maybe this frog lady is not necessarily good. Like maybe there's some sort of bigger evil plot there, and maybe maybe Baby Yoda knows this somehow, and he's eating those eggs for a reason,
because they're little Hitlers.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we'll see. I'll be wrong, but that was a thought that I recently had.
Yeah. After seeing the trailer, the trailer for the Mandalorian, I was like, oh, those two X-Wings we know that the Mandalorian is taking the child to his home. We heard in the trailer they mentioned Jedi, and I'm like, oh, those two X-Wings are escorting the Razor Crest to Luke Skywalker. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I know. I've thought about that. Like it just seems like there's no way they could actually pull Luke into this show. I feel like, because Mark Hamill's like way too old now, and you can't have somebody else playing that role, because especially since it's post Jedi. It's like I just don't see how they could do it. Yeah. I feel like people would freak out, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I don't think we've done any recasting like post.
Right.
Timeline. We've done prequels,
it would just
recasting.
Yeah, it would be so hard, because I mean I feel like even the prequel recasting and stuff is difficult. Right. So yeah, I don't know. Well, it could be interesting.
Yeah, I like Solo. I'm fresh out of stuff. Give some plugs. Give your plugs. You probably do a better job than I did.
Well, yeah, I play drums in Motion City Soundtrack. We oddly did a tour this year at the beginning of the year. maybe someday there'll be some more stuff. We have released a few songs this year, so there's that. And my weekly podcast, Bizarre Albums, every Tuesday. Each episode covers just an album that kind of makes you go, why does this exist? And I'm never making fun of them, just trying to explore. I do a ton of research and try to find out why did this happen? Why does this exist? And they're always albums by like actors and athletes and just fictional characters, or even sometimes like if a band just took like a really strange direction for one record.
Odd concepts. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So stuff like that. They're just short 15-20 minute episodes that are a lot of fun if you're there are a couple Star Wars episodes. So
I wanted to make sure that people knew that because I enjoy the Star Wars episodes. You did the Miko and you did
the Star Wars Christmas album, yeah.
Right. And I wanted to let you know that on Bizarre Album's Patreon page, there is an episode, I believe it's Bizarre Singles, where you break down Lopty Neck.
Yes.
And it is hands down my favorite episode that you've done.
Oh, wow, thank you.
I learned so much stuff that is mind blowing.
I honestly I did too. That's my favorite thing about making the show is finding out stuff that I didn't know either.
If I recommend, I don't know if you've posted it publicly. Go to
I actually did. It is in the main feed now. Yeah.
Okay. But go to his Patreon too. Go to Tony's Patreon. Listen to the Lopty Neck episode. You'll never believe who wrote the song, who sings, and where their career went after that.
Yeah,
it's astounding.
Yeah, I was pretty excited to learn that information. Yeah.
Yeah. No spoilers. And then the Twitch stream coming up on Friday.
Yeah, I also play drums in Don't Stop or We'll Die. It's just very silly, weird comedy band with Paul Rust and Michael Cassidy from the Netflix show Love. With Twitch stream Friday the 13th at 6 p.m. Pacific. We're gonna play 2 sets, I think. So it's gonna be a nice, long, fun show. So join us if you can. I just realized that was Friday the 13th. You saying that right now? Yeah. So I'm sure there's got to be some Jason stuff in there, right? That's a good question. I mean, there's no to my knowledge, because I joined this band later, and maybe there's a song that I don't even know about, but I don't think we have any Jason material. But who knows? Maybe, I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking about Paul's podcast. Oh yeah, he'll probably work it into some in between banter or something at some point, but we'll see. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for having me. I hope the next episode is a lot more exciting for you. But I mean, it's again, I didn't hate it. I just, something's got to be your least favorite of a thing, Right. There's always a least favorite, and this is probably my least favorite. Yeah, people have like a least favorite beetle, or it doesn't mean they're bad. Exactly. Yeah, I'm talking about the insect. But no, thank you for coming on. Yeah, I mean, and it's the crazy thing is it's just a TV show. Like, that's weird, right? It's a Star Wars TV show. I know. We don't have to hold it up on some sort of pedestal. I mean, but what's cool is it's still Star Wars. Yeah. And God, is it nice to have right now. Oh, jeez. Yeah, you're telling me. And with the weeks where my mind has like no room for Star Wars, right? It's awesome because it's like, oh, out of nowhere, it's Friday. Oh, there's Star Wars I haven't seen that I can watch. Like that's what happened last Friday. I'm like sitting there. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that there's Star Wars. So yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that the Mandalorian's back. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And until next time, McClunky. Nice.